The God of Livia by Israel Centeno. Translated by Gullermo Parra. They sing in the night's retreat, and the dark green frog dances on 2 feet in front of a mortal moon. The Plateau, Jose Antonio Ramos Sucre. I have taken refuge in knowledge, and that is how I've lost my soul. Little by little, I built an inflexible and vast structure, fine-tuned by the arts and sciences. Today, lost to evil, the only place where I can practice the sublime experience of sensibility, I question the cost, the exclusion from my fellow beings, the certainty that I haven't lived, and the hatred I feel towards others, incapable of reflecting myself. In Italy, I was a truly fortunate man. A member of the House of Savoy and a cousin to the king, cupbearer to his majesty, and gentleman with the right to be blanketed in front of his royal highness. I was also considered an emblem of manhood, a portent of elegance and good manners. Meanwhile, I spent my days well in Florence, exalted by the portent of its churches, and writing dissertations on the fine arts, or attending clandestine dissections of cadavers at the medical school in Naples, as well as getting lost in the world of secret societies and in the hovels of Rome, following the trail of abject Caesars, repeating their excesses. I knew how to find delight in lust. I peeked into the abyss of perversion. Nothing could stop me back then, as I had received an inheritance that was historic in its proportions. Wise, learned, initiated in letters and philosophy, I answered to no mortal, because I had trespassed the limits of human mediocrity. During those days, a series of ritual murders occurred in Rome, in which the victim, after being subject to delicate tortures, was bled to death and skinned. Their skin left to dry in the sun on the day following the sacrifice in the high towers of the 7 hills. Immediately, a royal edict opened an investigation. I was busy with palace arrangements for the protocol of consummating my marriage with Countess X. The court was continuously experiencing shock at the imminence of my wedding. The labors demanded to be carried out with extreme pulchritude. No detail could stain the event. My cousin, the king himself, was in charge of the guest list, the proper illumination for the palace, and the opening of the borders. Everything was marching along according to what the ceremony indicated. On the day of the wedding, I found out through my butler about incriminatory clues discovered by the palace guard, revealing my involvement in the most recent murders. At no moment did I let myself be taken over by confusion and fear. They hadn't detained me in hopes of avoiding a scandal. Obviously, they were allowing me an opportunity to find an adequate exit. I called a gambling contact, and he rented the carriage, and losing no time, we headed over to a secret club near the Coronal Palace. Once there, I abandoned myself to desperate rounds of dice games, drinking absinthe and smoking opium. Millions of liras were pulled from my treasure chests, and so I spent my time leaving Countess X sumptuously dressed while she waited for her groom who would never arrive. The scandal had erupted. It was of exclusive elaboration. The king's cousin, breaking his word, revealed the shame and dishonor of the entire family with his excesses. Nothing would save me from the ire. No one could save me from my destiny. I was captured at dawn and placed on the first ship leaving for the Americas. I knew when I arrived in the port of Alfaguara of the fate of the order I belonged to, alongside other noblemen. They discovered 3 counts and a ritual of skinning a lovely society damsel at the Colosseum, a place they selected so as to stretch out her skin for the solar luminaries. All of them were prosecuted after confessing to their crimes, realized in the name of a pagan deity, worshipped since antiquity when Livia, the wife of Augustus Caesar, was a devotee. The judge sentenced them to death by quartering. My name was never revealed at any moment in the process. I had been condemned to oblivion by the court and saved from a sure death. The king still cries in private when he remembers the broken bonds, and he curses my absence. I arrived in the valley of Caracas on a caravan of mules. After a long journey through the Avila mountain range, the city was narrow and long. It was lined by a serpentine river nourished by streams coming off the majestic mountains, in whose shelter I would spend the rest of my life. I passed the coffee plantations, leading my steps eastward, seeking to settle in the beautiful hills of Parra. I was looking for a remote spot, far from mankind. I had been initiated into a rupture from the world of men, and I had no intention of returning. I bought a coffee plantation in Caramore Cove. I had to dedicate myself to reconstructing the colonial house, since its surroundings and inner patios were in ruins. With groups of anonymous peons, I cleaned up the coffee trees and dedicated myself to furnishing the house in the best European style. I felt rewarded for my past mistakes in my current solitude. I was on the peak of an exuberant mountain. I was the gentleman owner of balconied lands in the empty heights of a landscape where my sight would wander in sinister divagations. I was an evil man. My condition constantly revealed me as being poised against my fellow beings. Diabolical pacts brought me back to the calm I had lost in the effort to build a world of ferns and coffee trees. I had to spread the blood of my victims over the orchids, or I would never accede to the kingdom of spite. I devastated the coffee trees and scorched the earth, planted it with roots and onions. I corrupted officials so I could gain permits to burn systematically. Nothing could remit me to a paradisiacal condition. I hired a rustic butler who wasted no time incorporating himself to the rituals offered to the pagan god of Livia. He would hunt live animals and sacrifice them on a limestone slab at the edge of Cormare Creek, but it wasn't enough. My god required greater offerings, and I was growing desperate, because each day I was further away from the grace of its curse. This was how Silvana came to my life. A beautiful woman with blonde tresses and a glance like a lake. Daughter of a Piedmont immigrant. Prolific in her labors of sewing and sublime in her abominable reading. She tended to read Dario while I courted her on the banks overlooking the Catuche stream. I married the delicate Vestal. She had a beautiful body and soul. A propitious offering to the God of Livia. I feigned illness so as not to consummate the marriage. I had to keep her in a virginal state until the indicated moment when I tear her flesh with the impatient scalpel. I was obligated to preserve her from passion. The night came. The moon was gliding cleanly across a blue starless sky. Hecuba smiled. I remembered the vessels sacrificed for Livia, and I disposed myself to accomplish the task. I proposed to Silvana a nighttime walk down to the creek where my butler had prepared the altar, and so we crossed the narrow trail under the laden smile of Celine. night was cold and dry. A constant breeze brought out whistles from the rushes and the sublime howl of a yellow dog. I know it was yellow. It was the same dog that belonged to that Asquetia girl. I had seen it and was able to recognize it. Guided our steps to the stone slab where my wife would have to be skinned. Without a preamble, I pushed her onto the altar and tore off her clothing, a modest linen nightshirt. Her blue eyes glowed in contrast to the lunar clarity, glowing in my darkness and seeking an answer to such violence. The butler appeared with the scalpel once I had taken her clothes off. She, in shock, was trying to find a reason, which she found urgently, because she screamed for pity, arguing for the only excuse that would stop my hand. "My sir, you can't kill me. Not like this. Listen, I'm not a virgin." Disconcerted by the revelation and overcome by anger, I opened her legs in my grip and inserted my fingers in her vagina. A brusque attempt to find the intact hymen. My God, she fooled me. She was a whore, a harlot, a woman stained by lust. She surpassed my own perdition. So we were two demons facing off. No matter, she had to die. I dragged her by those golden tresses down the ravine, hitting her head over and over. In a hilly corner, I procured a blow with a shovel to the base of her skull and left her for dead at the edge of a waterfall illuminated by the moon. Surely the yellow dog would take care of her skin and bones. I have no idea who might claim her soul. Overwhelmed by fury, I returned home, where I spent days submerged in the utmost silence. I will never rise from this armchair facing the rows of ancient coffee trees, from where I'll see my butler disappear each night to pay tribute to the gods of these lands. I won't ever get up again. The forest rises around me, and the undergrowth will eventually devour my possessions. In these final moments, I am only accompanied by the specter of Silvana, who laughs from her devastating triumph on the throne of the pagan god of Livia. This certainty overwhelms and gratifies me.